Sports Show Live. We've been here all day, and it has been a fantastic day. When you have legends and pros and vendors that we've had, it makes the day go so fast. We couldn't do this show if it weren't for the social media that we've got an opportunity to broadcast this to you. Facebook Live, YouTube, on the Indy Boat Sport and Travel Show website. Make sure that you check the online schedule of all of the opportunities that we're going to be bringing to you tomorrow, and then again next week, reminding you that the Deer Turkey Waterfowl Expo starts next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're going to have a whole new cast and crew for you, so you're not going to want to miss anything. Go to the IndySportsShow.com and check out all of the calendared events. We've had a great day, but we always save the best for last, right? That's what they teach you. Always save the best for last. And I mean that in the most sincere way, because Mark Martin is truly a legend, not only in fishing, but in the outdoor world. And it's an honor to have you back here on Indy Sports Show Live.
Well, thank you for having me back.
It's my pleasure.
I enjoy coming down here talking to you.
It's not the race car driver, Mark Martin, obviously. It's the legendary fishing pro. So, you know, you have so many things, a guide, a captain, an author, a teacher, a professional fisherman. What don't you do?
You know, I just evolve. That's what I do. I evolve into, you know, went from being a kid at 5 years old with a dream in my heart to wanting to be a professional fisherman, to being a professional fisherman and evolving into a professional teacher, involved into being a professional hunter, and it just, you start learning about things and people want to learn what you know. And if I can help people get interested in the outdoors one way or the other, I'll do it.
You know, social media, which is what we're doing here today, is a big part of what you have come to know and adopt as you've changed. And Mark Martin Fishing on Twitter and Instagram, and huge following on Facebook, of course. Does that get to be a burden for you? Is that you like that aspect of the business?
Yeah, I like it. You know, I like it because people send me emails and messages and tweets and everything else about how much it's helped them. I mean, I don't realize it until they tell me, and then when they tell me that kind of stuff, I want to do more and more of it, you know, leaving an impression that if I can teach somebody how to do it, they're going to teach somebody else how to do it. And it's a sport, or the things I do is fun things that keep people interested in the outdoors, and especially the young people, keeps them on the right track.
So you brought up something. You're 50 years plus fishing, you're 30 years plus as a pro. You brought up since age 5, and there's a good story about you that I've loved for people, because I see a lot of kids out here today. When you were 5 years old and you're sitting around your family, very outdoor family, you know, mom and dad and sister, and your dad went to you and said, "Mark, what do you want to do when you grow up?" What'd you tell him?
I wanted to be a fisherman.
Of course you do, and I want to meet a unicorn.
Yeah, that's right. That's about what my dad said.
I think he literally said, "Why don't you think about that?" and comes back to you, and you said again, "I want to be a fisherman."
Yep, exactly. I never detered.
So there's your family, and that story comes full circle back in 1990.
Right.
Tell us about that special moment when your dad finally said, "Well, maybe you can make this work."
Well, I came back from winning the World Championship in 1990, and I was, you know, pretty darn happy, you know, and I was excited. Called my mom and dad, told them I'm coming home. They immediately put on a big dinner for the whole family, and they're going to stop at the house on your way home. And so I did, and I got to the house, and the whole entourage was there, and all congratulate me. And I looked in the corner, I seen this goofy reel-to-reel that my dad was so proud of, and I was like, "What's that doing out?" And I figured he was going to tape me or something. It sat there, and my dad finally, after supper was over with, he reached over and he turned it on, and it was right there where he was interviewing me, and he was interviewing my sister, and bantering back and forth, and I wouldn't change my mind. And he wanted to change it, and he couldn't change it. He was getting frustrated on it, and finally he turned it off. But this time when he turned it off, he looked across the table and he said, "Mark, maybe I was wrong."
That's a pretty special moment.
Tear to my eye, you know.
Well, there were no tournaments, until about 1985?
Right, yeah, that's when they started MWC, and that's where I started, was in there.
And then in 1990, you got the title Original Champ. Tell me about that.
That's because I
think that's still your email today, isn't it?
Yeah, Ridge Champ is my email, and I use it. I didn't start using it. The In-Fisherman Professional Walleye Trail announced me every time, the original champ, and it kind of stuck. Everybody, that's what they known me as, and that was a pretty cool title, and I've used it. And when I won the World Championship, they gave that to me. So it was Al Linder and the guys that told me that's your original champ. So
and it's a perfectly fitting title for you. I want to go back though to your family, because obviously coming from Michigan where you are now, and a lot of outdoor activities starting at a very young age, and you had a passion, and you weren't going to let anybody sway you from that passion. But you also had some good people going back, even I believe to your grandfather, Grandpa Smitty, and he kept diaries. Tell me about these diaries.
Diaries that he detailed everything. I mean, when I was little, he'd get back home and he'd get his little diaries out, and he'd write in there, you know, where we fished and how many fish we caught, what the weather was like. You know, it was pretty detailed for back then. I never thought much of it. I just didn't know why Grandpa did that. But he had a bunch of them from way before I was born, and he could go back and look at it and decide where we're going to fish tonight. I mean, before we even went fishing, he knew where he was going to go fish because of the weather, and he'd look at a year ago, 2 years ago this day, 3 years ago this day. He'd get a bunch of books out, and he was a student of the art, really. He was ahead of his time in a lot of ways, because he only allowed us to keep one fish because he didn't have a freezer. We did have freezers, but he didn't like the taste of frozen fish because he didn't grow up that way. They didn't have ways to freeze fish when he grew up, so you ate them fresh or they spoiled. And so you were allowed one fish, keep it alive. As it dies in the live well, you can't take it out and throw it back in anymore. So you were done, so guess what? You rode. So you were pretty much hooked at the hip with that fish to keep it alive. And so I always made sure my fish stayed alive, although I rode a lot of nights.
So your grandfather, obviously a big part of your life, and those diaries, sad story there, isn't it?
Yeah, a real sad story. I was doing a magazine, wanted me to do kind of an overview of some things, and I would take out of my dad's vault. He had his own business, and I took the box of books out once in a while to do a story for Walleye magazine for Bud Reiser, and I wanted to get it right, and so when I was writing it, so I was correct at everything I was telling people about what you should do, and just by reading his stuff, I knew what I had to do. I write it down, and he had pictures in there, and I was going to send these pictures to Bud Reiser, so I pulled out a few pictures and put them on the top because I knew Bud would send them back. And I mean, they're monsters. I mean, we didn't have very many pictures because cameras were pretty extinct back then too. And so we had some pictures of some nice fish. I laid everything out on the box, and I was going to come back after the weekend and get it done. I come back and the box isn't there. For a while, my dad put it in the vault. I say, "Hey, Dad, where's the diaries and my story and the pictures that I laid right here?" I didn't see anything. I thought he was yanking my chain, and then the next thing I know, the cleaning people somehow took them.
So you've never seen them since?
Never, and it wouldn't have meant anything to them either because of the, you know, they couldn't recognize the name because the spots weren't the names that you would find on a map. They're spots my grandpa had in his head. You know, they were his names for certain things, and you know, yeah, they could use what the weather was and how many we caught, but they wouldn't know anything else.
It's a sad story, and I know that I've seen that and you've shared that story before. Let's switch gears to modern times. Let's talk about technology. I know that's something that you have embraced, technology, and I believe that one of your former partners kind of put you in charge of figure this stuff out.
Oh yeah, and technology. I thrive on technology for fishing. You know, whether it's now underwater cameras or now if it's you know, the electronics have come so far that now you can see fish off the sides of the boat, underneath the boat. You just got to interpret, and you got to have everything lined up. So I'll tell you what, the technology nowadays, the young people could, you know, like my editor and producer, I take him fishing. Him and his dad fished, and now he got out of it, but now he's getting back into it because he's learning from me, because he's gleaning it. He's not even, he don't fish, but he listens to what I'm saying. He's watching it. In fact, when he's not filming, he'll sit down because he can't stand it because he's a geek. He'll sit down there and play with that Lowrance and start pushing buttons and go, I think I know I can do. And he actually shows me how to work my own machines better, even though he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, he figures it out in his mind. It's just like your phone or like a computer. He can fix all that stuff. He understands things. So these kids nowadays, when they get into fishing, if they're into electronics, whether it's a computer or it's a phone, they're going to be top notch at being able to tell where there's fish or there's not fish.
Well, you know, you've already mentioned your partner Gary Roach, and
yep.
You've hung out with some pretty rarefied air when it comes to legends, but I think the point of the technology and embracing it is it's there to help you become a better fisherman.
Oh yeah, it's there to become, you know, like Gary, you know, I was 20 years younger than Gary, and he would tell me, he'd go, Mark, you know, like he didn't want to learn, but he knew you know, just like the young guys nowadays can learn faster, he was making me one of those young guys learning the technology so I could translate it into his terms and show him how to work it. And, you know, we were great partners at, you know, showing him how to use planer boards, showing him how to use this graph, because he started out, and I did too, with a little flasher. You turned it on, it's on, you give it more power, you turned it up. That's all there was to it. Now you had power gain, power this, up, down, colors. And so I had to teach him, so that was kind of fun.
Speaking of teaching, hanging out with some pretty, as I said, rarefied air, how important have people like Hal Linder and Doug Stingy been to you?
Really, really, you know, instrumental, because they taught me the business, you know, the business part of teaching. You know, when we were all together, it wasn't, let's see who can catch the most fish, let's see who can catch the first fish. We just went fishing, but in those fishing trips, we talked about how do we teach you how to do that better. How to make the business how to teach the public how to do that better. You know, how do you use your that lure better? How do we teach them how to understand maps better? How do we understand the electronics better? You know, we talk about things like that, so that when we went out and wrote articles, did seminars, we were putting actual facts to the public instead of something off the top of your head. We were talking to the public out of our hearts. And these guys, you know, to this day, I talk to them all. I just talked to Doug Stange last week asking him for my videotape of winning the championship, which he was involved in netting my fish because he was my third day partner. He went back and he couldn't find the tape. Now that was a heartbreaker. He was heartbroken because he didn't even know it was missing. And he said, that's the only tape we couldn't find.
You know what I find interesting is that when you were hanging out in their basements and their houses at a very young age with some truly pioneers in the fishing business, you weren't talking about what bait was catching the fish, or you were talking about the business side of this. So you've been an early adopter of helping other people. And you've said it 3 or 4 times here tonight.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was every time we were together, we were trying to help people, you know. I mean, you know, if Al caught a fish first or Gary caught, we weren't like, oh, how'd you catch that? Well, we knew how he caught it. We were sitting right there with him. You know, we just carry on with the conversation, you know, that we were going. So, you know, and Al and Gary and the rest of them, they're still educating in their own ways too today, you know. Gary's 81, Al's got to be about 76 now, I think. So
why don't you eat during a fishing tournament? I'm worried about you.
Yeah.
Why don't you eat?
Yeah, once in a while I grab a sandwich with one hand, but I never put the other hand down without a rod in it.
Always opportunistic, aren't you?
That's right. You can't catch a fish when your line's out of the water.
Why do you fish at night?
A lot easier. You catch bigger fish.
Mr. Walleye at night, they call you.
Bigger fish. A lot bigger fish at night. I don't care what fish you fish for, whether it's bass or walleye or all the big fish, they lose their inhibition at night. And if you can catch a bunch of 3, 4, 5 pound walleyes in the daytime, one of them fish at night would be a 10 pounder. You know, just the way it is. You'll double whatever your biggest one was in the daytime. A lot of times you'll almost double it at night in most cases.
Tell me about your ice fishing vacations, as you call them. Wildly successful.
Yeah, they are.
That's kind of an oxymoron to go on an ice fishing vacation school.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun. I learn. My pro staff learns. The students all learn. We had in this last school, we had a gal. She never ice fished in her life. We had a guy that never caught a walleye in his life. So we took him from, in both ways, we caught a limit of walleye for the guy that never caught a walleye through the ice. And we got this gal fish. She caught her first fish too, and she learned how to ice fish, and she won the plaque most improved because she caught that many fish.
And you're there at all these schools. You're there for all the people.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've already covered the fact that you've been successful. You love your passion for teaching and writing. Have all your dreams come true yet?
I don't know. You know, I've thought about that a lot, and there's more teaching to do. I haven't taught everybody yet. You know, I love to have the thought that I've touched as many people as I can. So I guess my job's never going to be done because I'm always going to be at the forefront of education and fishing and helping people be better than they were the day before.
So not to take you to a place that we never want to see, but on your tombstone, what's the first word to describe Mark Martin?
You know, I don't know.
We know you're a darn hard worker, so you're passionate.
I do have a tombstone, and that's sitting under a big oak tree. And it does have a walleye on each side of it right now with a big buck in the middle. So that's the only thing it's missing is somebody to put something in there that...
What would you like to see there?
You know, I never thought about that. I mean, I've done a lot, but I think I'd like to see...
You've got some time to think about that, by the way.
Yeah, you know, something to do with teaching, probably. You know, teaching people to fish. I to say, oh, this is, you know, the best thing. There's so many good things in that I've done in my life that I've been excited over, and so many people that I met that have done nice things for me that I've gleaned from them too, and they've gleaned from me. I just, you know, it's hard for me. You know, I'm blessed. That's all I can say is I've been blessed.
Maybe that's your word.
I'm blessed. That's probably true. Hey, I like it.
I'll take some royalties off of that.
That's right, exactly.
You know, with all the people that you've experienced and your teaching and your mentors, I know you're big on mentors.
Yeah.
How do you think those people describe you?
You know, some of them, I know how they describe me. That you know, I hate saying what they, you know, I mean, it's not bad. It's all good people. It's just hard for me to say that they say I'm a nice guy. You know, I'm like, how do I? It's hard for it to come out of my mouth, you know, but that's what they all say about me, and I don't know why.
Well, I know why. We've had an opportunity to get to know each other, and I would say they're 100% accurate. Have you done everything that you want to do yet? Not everything. You know, there's something that, you know, I don't know what it is yet, you know. I mean, there's something that big that I want to do, but I don't know what I want to do. I want to keep fishing. I want to keep hunting. I want to keep teaching. But I'm sure when I'm doing one of those things, something big is going to come that puts it apart from everything else that I've done, or it's. Let's transition on that, because you're as much of a hunter as you are a fisherman. I don't think people realize that.
I've got 30-some big bucks, shoulder mounts and skull mounts on the wall. I got a giant this year, and I've done it all myself. I haven't had a guide one, but I take it as, the whitetails and walleyes are the same animal, in my opinion. They all are creatures of edges. And if you can learn how to use the whitetail as edges of weeds, edges of drop-offs, edges of a rock pile, edges of, the bait. You know, I can take deer and I categorize them the same way. I look at a piece of woods and I see where there's a edge of real thick timber and I see thin timber. The big bucks walk that thin line, or a ditch through the middle of the field. The big bucks will walk that. And I've taught myself, because my grandpa and dad helped a little bit on that, that I look at those things. And I think fishing has helped me be better at it. And I got to do a seminar on whitetail hunting this next week. And it's fun to teach people, because I put it into fishing terms, a lot of it, so they can understand. The fishermen can understand how to deer hunt. The deer hunters can maybe understand how to walleye fish. And it's all interreactive between the two. They're all creatures. Like if you were able to go out and jacklight a big buck at night, it's just like I can go out and catch a big walleye at night because they lose their inhibition. Well, that's when, you know, low light periods is when they start getting active, the big bucks and everything. But if you know where to look for them in the daytime and what their routes are, you can find them and intercept them where they're coming from.
So I know you're very popular. You got a lot of people to see and places to go. You've talked a lot about mentors. Who's the biggest mentor, and what's the best piece of advice they've given to you?
I'd say Gary Roach. He, just keep working hard, Mark. He said, to me many times, he says, you get what you want because you have the talent, you have the drive, and he said, just keep working hard.
And I tell you, that's a great way to end the Indy Sports Show live for today. We are at the Travel Cafe, 65th Annual Ford Boat Sport and Travel Show. We have had a fantastic day, and I promised we'd save the best for last, and I think we sure did. There's so much more to come tomorrow, and then of course again next week. Check out all the social media platforms, the Facebook Live, the YouTubes for the Indiana Boat Sport and Travel Show. It's been a great opportunity to be with you and share the chair and the couch with so many great legends and the crowd out here today. I am Brian Pointer. I'm host of Indy Sports Show Live. We're going to be back tomorrow. Yeah, that's right.